You know, she said before we started recording, can I just have time to finish lunch? That's the thing people don't realize as we bring Meghan Patrick into the Here's What We Know studios. People don't realize just how busy a singing career is. And I mean, how many moving parts, huh?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. Well, and I think what some people don't understand too, it's not just the job itself. It's not just writing songs and performing on and being on the road. For me, it's also like making sure I get to work out and get outside, and like that just makes me a better person. It makes me more focused at work. So yeah, you got to make for me it's really important. I've learned over the years it's really important for me to make time for like exercise and being outside, going hunting, that kind of stuff. It's just good for me as a human being, which makes me a better artist and songwriter.
Come on, let's humble brag. What's your workout? Come on, tell me, because I mean, she's in fantastic shape. I mean, I saw the wedding photos. Yeah, you're
Well,
doing
hey,
workouts
yeah,
that I'm not doing.
sorry, my dogs are trying to wrestle behind me, of course. Well, right now, I started doing boxing classes, which has been great. I've been known to have a little bit of a temper in the past, so being able to hit things um, in a positive way is really good for me. And then I also, right now, this time of year, I really love mountain biking because the weather is incredible, the fall leaves and everything. It's really beautiful to be outside right now. So
But how many times have you fallen? Because I've not done mountain bike. I've got some dear friends who are avid, crazy mountain bikers, and they all say the same thing. When you fall, not if, but when
yeah.
you fall, try not to A, die, or B, paralyze yourself. Those are the goals.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie for sure. I mean, I used to be a competitive snowboarder. And so I have to get my adrenaline somehow. Being on stage is definitely helps with that. But, yeah, I've fallen a few times mountain biking. I've never had any like really serious injuries. I mean, I'll be honest, like I'm not doing any kind of like crazy, super dangerous trails. I just my thing is like I just if I fall and break my wrist and I can't play guitar anymore, then that wouldn't be good. So I don't do anything super crazy. I've had a couple falls, just scrapes and bruises though, nothing serious.
You're not on the Dirks Bentley path, is what you're telling us.
I don't know. Is Dirk Bentley doing some crazy pass? I guess.
Dirks moved to Colorado, during the pandemic, just because mountain biking in Tennessee wasn't a challenge enough. He wanted to add snow to the
Wow.
equation.
Okay.
Think about that. Think about it's scary enough coming up downhill enough on a nice dry. Think about adding a patch of ice to it.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I mean, good for him. I just, I've had so many injuries in my lifetime. Like I've kind of gotten that out of my system a little bit, and so I'm very measured in how I get my adrenaline now.
Were you, because two-time Canadian Country Music Association Female Vocalist of the Year, honestly, I found you 6 years ago. And I'll tell you how I found you. I was doing deep dives on music and stuff, and I saw Seven Bridges Road, Meghan Patrick, and Washboard Union. And I'm like, okay, who's that? I know who Washboard Union is. Who's Meghan Patrick? And that's when I heard you, and I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. And so that's when I started my little deep dive on you. But it was 6 years
Okay.
ago. You remember that recording?
Yeah, no, I big time. So I'm a huge Eagles fan. I mean, they're probably my favorite band of all time. And I remember I'd always wanted to do a cover of Seven Bridges Road. And when I met the Washboard guys, we were label mates over at Warner Canada. And we really hit it off. And obviously they do great harmonies and stuff. That's like their thing. And it was actually right after Glenn Fry had passed, and we decided that was a good time to do kind of a little tribute and record that. And the guys, they put it together. They found this amazing church. I happened to be out in BC close to them on a radio tour at the time. And they were like, well, we've got this beautiful church and we can do this whole thing. So yeah, so they put it all together and we went in there and sang it. And it was one of my favorite moments for sure.
What I loved is when the back camera panned out, and you could see the traffic driving by. And I love, oh man, that is just, this really happened just as they did it, So
Yeah,
it
wait, no,
wasn't
it
put
was all
together
one
and
take.
it was.
So what's that?
And when I said, when it comes to videos, though, you're really good at it. I mean, cool about it. Come on now, that's
Thank you for
next level
saying
acting
that.
on cool about it. I think
Thank
that's
you for saying
cool.
that. That's my favorite video I've ever made, and we had so much fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a long day. That was like probably a 14-hour day shooting that video, but it was so fun and really felt like next level. Sean, I mean, he did such an amazing job directing that video, and I felt like for the budget that we had and the amount of time we had to shoot that, like I felt like he made it look like a Hollywood movie. Like I thought it looked so great.
Well, it did. It
Hi.
had the, what is it called? It had that Ocean's 11's feel because, and you got to
Yes.
see the video. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. And it's fun. It has the little twist. Your other one, let's see, the one where you made me cry. I'll tell you the one you made me
Aw.
cry on was Never Give Up on You. Right? And at
Yeah.
the end, when mom goes, he always knew.
That was a good
Come
one.
on
I
now.
know.
Come on now.
Man, he's such an incredible director. Yeah, I mean that video was amazing.
Well, it's and you're so natural. Some people, some people look stilted in videos. There's some people who just, outside of performance videos, that's all they can do. And that's not a criticism. It's knowing your lane. But you
Yeah.
have that extra ability.
Well, I do have a little bit of background. I was a bit of a musical theater nerd back in the day. I actually did a couple summer camps of like where you just go and like put on a production. So I did a little bit of acting in that sense. And like, also I always felt like, with the music videos, I'm like, if we're going to do this, like, let's make it something worth watching and like have some fun with it. So, but I mean, granted, like it took time. If you look at some of my earlier videos, I probably don't look as comfortable because it was still kind of new territory for me. But over the years, a big part of it too is finding. Hold on one second, guys. Enough. Sorry, my dogs wait until I'm trying to like do
Okay.
a
My dog
meeting.
is literally right here behind me asleep. What kind of
So sorry about that.
No, it's okay because it makes me wonder what kind of dogs are they?
We have 3 dogs. They're all rescues. They're all like mutts kind of. So Annie was my dog before I met Mitchell. Ducky and Cash were his dogs. Annie is like, we call her, she's a Heinz 57. She's got like, I don't even know how many breeds she has. I don't even know what she looks like. Ducky is like a boxer, bulldog, pit bull mix. And then Cash is like a pointer hound mix. They're crazy. I love them though. They're crazy. But I swear it's like they will lay around and do nothing. And the second I come in here and try and do like a podcast or like a Zoom meeting or something, they're just like wrestling in the background. I'm like, can y'all not?
My dog is the exact opposite. We have a husky that found us a year ago. I mean, we had some plumbers at our house and we came home and they said, "We love your dog." And we're like, "We don't have a dog." And called the Humane Society, and she wasn't microchipped or anything. And then after 30 days, because we kept her because I wanted to make sure nothing happened to the dog. And she's a husky. She's beautiful and nobody claimed
Right.
her. So she's out. She's the exact opposite. She zooms around here when we're just screwing around the house. But when I come in here, she'll just come in and lay down. And that's what she does because she's
Yeah.
like completely bored with whatever I
Aw.
do. So
That's awesome.
and you've got a blended dog family as you embark on this stuff. And we'll talk about Mr. and Mrs. Tenpenny later. But tell me about, because you're a musical theater nerd. I get that. I can see that. And even your earlier videos, you either have a stage presence or you don't. Right. I mean, and again, it's not a criticism. I've been doing this long enough where you see somebody who looks comfortable on stage, and then you see somebody who just is performing because they're good at it, right? But they don't ever look. I'll give you a classic example. Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson, throughout his career, he is a wonderful performer. He's a great songwriter, great singer. Never looked comfortable on stage. And that's okay,
Mhm.
not a criticism.
Yeah.
Then you see the people who just
Well, when you got
look
that many
comfortable
hits, you
from the
don't have
moment.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to go, hey, okay, you don't like that one? How about this one? But
Yeah.
seeing you and being that, tell me about, because you grew up in Canada, tell me about when and where country music got to you and made you go, all right, this is intriguing.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been playing in bands since I was like 13. My first band, we were called the Sirens. We were a bunch of girls that my friend Hill, who actually is now like a Juno award winning producer, songwriter. She was kind of the ringleader. She was the one that sort of had the idea to start the band. She asked me if I wanted to sing in the band. So that was kind of my introduction to that. And then when I went to college, I was studying opera and jazz actually in college. And I met some really incredible musicians there at McGill University. And we started a band called the New Groove Orchestra. So it was me and 9 dudes, and I was only singer and only girl in the band. And so a lot of it was kind of, it was sort of my introduction to like collaborative songwriting where, you know, our saxophone player would write a lot of the horn lines, and our guitar player, you know, he would write progressions and stuff on his guitar, and they would kind of just like bring me the music and be like, write lyrics and melody to this. And we toured a bunch, and we played some really cool shows. We got to open for Aretha Franklin at Montreal Jazz Fest, which was a bucket list moment for me because she is one of my idols, or was. And so yeah, that kind of like gave me, that's kind of how I caught the bug of like touring and being in bands and being on stage and like just performing. I realized that there was like nothing else in my life I'd ever done that felt so that good to me and so like natural. Like I always felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And then I ended up moving back home, and I was in a bluegrass band, like a 4-piece bluegrass band called the Stone Sparrows. Same thing, you know, we did a lot of touring. We cut a few records independently. We got to, our big show was opening for the Tedeschi Trucks band at the Toronto Jazz Festival, which was amazing. Derek Trucks is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. And yeah, after a while, I kind of was the only one in the band that was super serious about pursuing only music as a career, whereas some of the other guys had, you know, other jobs and other interests and stuff. So we kind of parted ways very amicably. And at that point, I had started writing songs by myself a lot more, and I kind of just realized that I was naturally just writing country songs. You know, that's just what came out of me. And we played Boots and Hearts Music Festival, one of the first 2 years that they had started that festival. It actually started like pretty much in my hometown. And that was my first exposure to like the country fans. And it all just came together where I was just like, these are my people. I love these people. I love these fans. I love the whole atmosphere around this genre. And again, like I said, these songs that I was writing, they were just country songs. And so then I kind of started and embarked on the beginning of my solo career. And after a few years of just kind of playing gigs and doing stuff on my own, I finally got my first record deal with Warner Music in Canada. So I always say that bluegrass was like my gateway drug to country.
Okay. So there is so much to unpack there. I wanted you to finish your narrative, but I mean, let's go back.
Okay.
Opera and jazz. Okay, those two don't go together anyway, right? Because I'm an old music guy, and you don't find those two cross pollinating a lot at all. But to go from opera to jazz to bluegrass, I mean,
Well, actually,
that's
there
a
was funk and soul
chiropractor's
in between
dream.
there.
Yeah, I figured you had to, but the beautiful thing is it painted this beautiful palette for you because, okay, I mean, as far as like
Mhm.
Pat Benatar started off as an opera, right? And then found her way to use that as a thing. Jazz
Mhm.
singers are rarer, right? Because jazz and
Yeah.
bluegrass are like a calling usually. You don't
Mhm.
see a lot of
It's very
people
niche.
leave. I mean, you'll see some bluegrass. Yeah. Vince Gill once told me one time, he goes, I love bluegrass music, but I decided that one day I'd like to own a house. And I
Yeah,
was never going to
exactly.
do that.
That was me as well. With I was like, I love bluegrass music, but like I want a career. I want to make a career out of music. And it's such a niche thing that like unless you are like Rhonda Vincent or Alison Krauss or someone like Vince Gill, like it's a hard thing to make an entire career out of and really, do the things you want to do. And it's funny because actually Vince Gill actually produced on my very first record, and I was able to talk about that a lot with Vince when we were at his studio. And he is one of my favorite humans on this earth. He is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's very interesting because even the dichotomy of the names you mentioned, and look them up. I mean, the economic disparity. All right, let's
Hmm.
just be real right now. The economic disparity between Vince Gill to Alison Krauss to Rhonda Vincent, right? And even though Rhonda
Hmm.
is huge
Yeah,
in the bluegrass world, Allison's economic disparities because she's had so many crossover hits for her.
exactly.
We
Right.
have when I say nothing at all, but the duets and the Robert Plants and the Vince
Yeah.
Gills and all the people that she's been on. And then
Hmm.
Vince literally left the genre, right? But he still
Yeah.
has he has those bluegrass certifieds, if you will.
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
and at some point it does become an economic decision, and that's
Hmm.
and let's leave the artistry out of it. I think everybody doing music is doing some form of art, but the
Right.
economic realities are real.
Yeah. I mean, look, I certainly don't do it for the money, but I would like to make some. you know, when I mean, as a musician, I mean, I've had many, many years where I've struggled and been really broke, and like it was totally worth it, but I don't really want to stay there, you know? So, yeah, but I think also it wasn't just a choice, like a financial decision. I'm the type of person, I intend to live a lot of lives within my time that I'm given here on earth. And I already have lived a lot of lives, the snowboarding and the music, and I'm someone who just gets really passionate about a lot of different things. And one of those things is music. And like even within my records, that I've made as like a country artist, if you were to look at the different records, you can probably see different influences seeping in here and there, and me bringing in different genres and different things. I mean, that's why I've always been inspired by and looked up to an artist like Eric Church, where he's made so many records, and each record, sometimes there are these different influences and sounds and choices he made production wise that are bringing in different styles and genres, but it all still works. It's all still cohesive as like, this is an Eric Church record. And that was something that I always really wanted to do with my music, because I have so many styles of music that I love and that have influenced me as an artist and as a songwriter. And so it's like always trying to kind of walk that line of being able to fully be myself while trying to make that fit within the country genre.
When it comes to songwriting, have you written that song, I Intend to Live a Lot of Lives? My gosh, that's brilliant. I hope you heard that.
I
I hope
guess I
you heard what
should. All right, Gary, I'm gonna write it
I
just for you.
yeah, when you said it, it punched me in the face. What a beautiful sentiment, especially at this stage of your life, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
you're you're not falling apart. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the majority of your life is still ahead of you. And I think that is such a brilliant idea for a song that I've already lived a
I'm
lot of
writing
life.
it down in my hook book right now.
Yeah, and I intend to write a lot more. I intend to live a
Yeah.
lot more. And then
Yeah.
you tie it back in, but I'm going to spend all of them with you.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
I love it. All
it's,
right. Okay. I'm shit. You're going to get songwriter credit on this.
listen, an attaboy. That's good. But I'm all over that. When you write the song because you have the talent, I love it. Okay, I want to talk about bands where it's like a quick break. Because
Mhm.
as Megan said, I'd like to pay for this. Take a break and right. Here's what we know with Meghan Patrick. It's time to think differently when it comes to your parties, meetings, and groups. The catering from Havana Cuba restaurant in downtown San Jose. Instead of the same old, how about the most delicious Cuban sandwich you've ever had? You're tired of fries? Plantains, my friends, they'll change your world. And here's something you didn't know. Havana Cuba was voted one of the top 10 tamales in the entire South Bay. They have vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options, and their website is 998cuba.com. They're located at 387 South 1st Street in downtown San Jose. It's Havana Cuba. So let's talk about bands. Bands to me, and I use this word and I think you'll know what I mean. You survived them. You survived the bands because they're tough. You know, most record companies are really hesitant about bands because when you start bringing different personalities, and you pointed out, and I think that's something that doesn't get pointed out enough, different goals within the dynamic. That's crazy, huh? Because I mean, you rattled off three groups, and it seems like all three groups, not only were there the different personality groups, but the different structures and the different goals. What was what's the best part? What's the hardest part? What's the worst part?
I mean, I think the best part is just, finding people that are like your counterparts that share the same passion as you. And like starting a band is an adventure, and I love a good adventure, and, starting from like my first band, the Sirens. So my friend Hill, she, like I said, she was kind of the ringleader in that. And it was like, I mean, she really opened my eyes up to like this whole new world where like, whoa, like this is something I could do. And I mean, we were so young, like, but we still like, we recorded some songs. We played talent shows. We used to have we had this amazing principal at our school who was so supportive of us, which Mr. Briggs, you're the man. But he gave us like a room at our school that we turned into like our jam space, which we thought was so cool at 13. We had a little mini fridge stocked with snacks, and, we were pretty cool with our jam space. And he would let us come into our first period classes late so that we could go to other schools and like play their assembly. Those were our gigs, was we played assemblies.
Wow.
So, and we felt so cool. Like, we're freaking rock stars. Like, we go, sorry, we'll be late for first period. We have an assembly gig tomorrow. And, so it started with that, which was just a really cool experience. And that intrigued me. That really pushed me to be more interested in like songwriting. And then, the band in college, I mean, this is like a tower power 9-piece funk band. So we've got like 5-piece horn section, guitar, bass, drums, keys. And these are McGill is one of the best music schools in the country. So these guys, I mean, to this day, some of those guys are still just crushing it and just absolutely incredible musicians. I mean, the level of musicianship I was exposed to working with these guys was truly just so impressive and so inspiring. And, again, we started touring clubs and bars. We got to play some big festivals, which was such an incredible experience. And then, the Stone Sparrows, I was in college still at the time when we started that band, and I ended up dropping out because I got to a point I was working my part-time job. I was in school full time, and then I was playing these gigs every weekend, and it was too much. I couldn't sustain all of them, and not working wasn't an option, and not doing gigs wasn't an option because that was the one thing I really wanted to do. And so it wasn't my parents' favorite phone call, but they were supportive of it. They just said, like, we're not supporting you financially. Like, we love you and we hope the best for you, but like, the money is cut off. And honestly, I'm so grateful to them for that because it pushed me to work my butt off because I had to make rent. That's when I started getting into busking all the time. I would busk on like sidewalk corners, subways, whatever I could do to make a little extra cash to pay the rent or get groceries or whatever. And which made me a better guitar player because I was playing all the time. And, it's just like every single one of those bands gave me something that made me into who I am today. And the one thing that was consistent through all of it was like, regardless of struggles or issues within the bands, disagreements or differences of opinion and in the music and whatever, there was one thing that I knew for sure is like, this is what I'm meant to do. And this is what I love. I will say that like, there are the pros and cons being in a band is awesome because you have this like camaraderie and you're like in it together. But that's also a lot of opinions. It's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and so it can get a little tough, a little contentious sometimes. You've got different egos and different opinions and feelings about things, and you figure out how to work those things out. But honestly, even now, like as a solo artist, like I think if you were to talk to my band that I have now, like I still am very adamant that my band is not just like hired guns. Like I want my band to be like my family. And I want I want it to feel collaborative. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'm their boss, like when push comes to shove, but I don't want it to feel that way. I want us to feel like we're up there together. I want them to love the music and be as passionate about the music as I am. And I've been really lucky to find some great players. So sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, but
It was a brilliant answer. That's why I asked it, because having going from the band to the solo structure. And again, I don't think you learn more as an artist. This is just me talking. I don't think you learn more than when no one is paying attention to you, right? When you're out there busking or you're
hmm
playing in a bar with two people in
yes.
it and they're drunk, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's when you learn how to be comfortable with that stage presence that you're not going to
Yep.
learn. And this is not a criticism of people who've got TikTok careers, because when you're sitting here playing to this video, the only people who are going to click on it are the people who want to watch you, right? But there's
Right.
something about having to win over attention that
hmm
cannot be
Yep.
replaced.
hmm
And
Yeah. I
also
mean,
learning the
I'm
dynamic
very
of the
grateful for that.
band. Here's my thing.
hmm
Well, I love this quote. Sting wanted out of the police. And they asked, I don't know if you saw that documentary, and he said, "Listen,
Mm-mm.
I don't want to be a part of a group because I can't fire them. I can't fire Stuart Copeland. I can't fire Andy Summers. But if I've got the band and you have enough off days or tick me off, I can fire you. I don't want to, but I love having that
Right.
option." And I'm like, wow. First of all, what an ego, and second of all, it's
Yeah.
it's that delicate balance when you're trying to do, and music is
It
collaborative,
is.
you know?
It is a very delicate
It's
balance, and I learned that the hard way. I don't know if it's the hard way, but like just through experience. Which, the first like players that I hired as like a solo artist, I very much treated it like we were a band because that's all I knew. I had only ever been in bands. I'd never been a solo artist, and unfortunately, some of the earlier guys that I hired kind of took advantage of that. And I remember like kind of learning like, okay, sometimes I have to be the boss. I have to be the bitch sometimes, like, and I have to, and I don't, despite what people might think about me, I know I've kind of put off this like tough girl image. Like I'm actually a very sweet person. I don't really like having to be that way. I don't really like having to assert myself to my band. Like I just would prefer you just like do your job and everybody's happy. But I think that I've after many years and like different players and having different bands, I've found a really happy medium of how to make it understood that like, yes, I am the boss, but also like I love you guys, you're my family. And it's just as simple as like I don't expect perfection. I don't expect that. I have a few rules. I tell all of the guys that I've hired in my band, I have a few rules. When you're on the road with me, obviously number one is like know the songs, do your job well, have great energy on stage, be passionate about it, no hard drugs, and no messing around on your wives and girlfriends. I am not paying you to do any of those things. And I don't condone that. And it's like, I just like, first of all, I am a woman. I know most of my bandmates, their wives or girlfriends. I'm like, I'm not lying to them for you. And you're not doing that on my time. And I think a lot of it is just like setting your. I think when you hire someone, if as long as you are very direct and specific and blunt about what your expectations are, most of the time you don't have a lot of issues. And you can kind of, and I've learned that like you can sort of rule them in a way that it doesn't have to be mean or aggressive or rude. It's firm and kind, and that's worked pretty well for me. So, and I
yeah.
have great players. So.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, when I first got into country music, I mean, let's be clear, it was like all music. It was a bit of a cesspool. It was all about the running around and the drinking and the drugs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then everybody, I think Garth came along and taught everybody how you can do it and survive. And then the
Hmm.
social media things, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled that you see acts take their family on. I love the fact that love is celebrated.
Hmm.
I love the fact that you posted the video and the reel of yours and Mitchell. Her husband is Mitchell Tenpenny. If you didn't know, I love
That's
that
so
video.
crazy to hear that still. My husband.
Yeah, well, your husband,
My husband.
and I like Mama prayed for. Right? I mean,
Mm,
okay, guys, you got to hear that song. I love that song. I
thank
love the
you.
lyrics of that song. And and then that's one thing. My left hand. You know what my left hand needed? A ring from the right man. Boom. And I love how you guys are celebrating being in love. Back in the old days, the record companies would keep you from saying if you were married or dating,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
they wanted
Oh
to get
yeah.
that illusion that you were
I mean,
available.
they still do that. I have female friends that have had management or label be like, well, you don't show that you have a boyfriend, and I've always made it very clear I don't hide any aspect of myself. I don't care if you don't like that I hunt. Too bad. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to post about it. You don't like that I have a boyfriend or a husband. Too bad. I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to post about it. I don't hide any part of who I am.
I loved it, and I love the wedding. I love the fact that I think you built the altar. Is that what I got?
I
Is that
did. Yeah. So my dad is a really, really talented, I mean, I guess you could call him a carpenter. He doesn't do it by trade, but he is an engineer. But he, as a hobby, builds beautiful mahogany boats. So he knows his way around wood. And so I had told him I thought it would be a really cool thing, a kind of sort of final thing to do with my dad before he, I guess, quote, gave me away to Mitchell. So my family came down for like a week before the wedding, and we went out to the farm. Larry, who owns the farm where we got married, he's a good friend. He's kind of like a second dad to me. He had a bunch of beautiful, just cut barnwood and stuff. We found this old piece of driftwood that ended up being the top of the altar. So we went out there about a week before the wedding, and we built it together, and it turned out so beautiful. And I was just really excited. I didn't tell Mitchell I was doing it, so I wanted it to be a surprise that I could tell him, like, hey, like, me and my dad built this. So I just really wanted the wedding to have a lot of personal touches. We also, with the help of some of Mitchell's family, his aunts, and his cousin's wife, they helped me make the boutonnieres. So we made them out of shotgun shells and using feathers from birds that I'd harvested. So we had dove feathers and turkey feathers. I also provided the florist with a bunch of turkey feathers of like turkeys that I had harvested, which were used in the bouquets and in the decorations. So yeah, it just felt, there, I just wanted there to be a lot of personal touches, and I wanted it to feel like us. And it honestly, it was a perfect day. It really was like the best day of my life.
I can honestly tell you, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I have never, in all the time that I have ever done this, heard a female say, I made the boutonniere out of shotgun shells and feathers and turkeys I harvested. This is a new one for me. So, because I only have so much time today, but as I told you, I want to get you back because I want to
Yeah,
go down hunting. I do want to go so much farther and deeper on your stuff,
let's
and you're
do it.
just fascinating. And I love the journey that you're on. And again, opera, jazz, bluegrass, country music, and this whole thing, and then the dynamic of being married to someone else in the country music world.
Hmm.
We'll get to that, but
Perfect.
frankly,
Part two.
frankly,
Let's do
I
it.
know Mitchell. He's not as interesting to me as you are. Right? You got a much better backstory than your husband does.
Oh,
And
thank you. Well, hey, I will let him know. I will definitely tell him. Hey, I would love to do a part two with you. Let's do it.
Meghan Patrick, y'all. Now you see why I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for so long.